This is Joe Crispin, former Penn State and professional basketball player. You are listening to the Mark Lesko Podcast.
I think you said that he could have gotten more separation.
There were some technique fundamentals in the receiver that weren't perfect in the 80s. I had to throw in a few points of criticism.
What was it like playing in March Madness? I mean, we have it going on right now.
But playing there was amazing. I mean, like, that's kind of your whole goal is to just be a part of that. It's such a special thing where the whole country is tuning in and anything is really possible, you know.
You know, my optimistic side said, like I said, that we're going to be okay. We just had a bad game. We're probably experimenting a little bit, ran into a good team. So.
If Miami came to our house, we would probably, if anything, win. We wouldn't get blown out.
When you first started playing football, you know, did you always want to play in college?
Nah, I was growing up. I was a big baseball guy. Loved baseball. And then 8th grade, I remember I got a call from my uncle, Coach Nagel. He's like, hey, I got the job. And I was just like, all right, I'll play football for you.
You are listening to the Mark Lesko Podcast, a podcast by diehard fans for fans. It's as honest and as raw as sports talk can be. Thank you for listening to the Mark Lesko Podcast.
Hey everybody, this is Greg Garrity.
So Anthony Lottie will punt it away from the 41. Greg Garrity is the deep man for Penn State at the 10-yard line.
Former Penn State receiver and 2016 Big Ten champion. You're listening to the best Penn State Nittany Lion podcast, the Mark Lesko Podcast.
All right, everybody, welcome back in to another episode of the Mark Lesko Podcast, joined by Penn State great AJ Wallace once again, talking about his playing days at Penn State. Which shirt is that, AJ?
This shirt is my sponsor, Totally Rad Supplements.
Right. Okay. It looks a little bit like a Dark Sport.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's what I thought it was at first, but you've heard of them, I'm sure.
Yeah, I heard them, yeah.
So are you going to watch the Arnold Classic?
I was trying to catch the amateur one, actually, but, I mean, I know they went yesterday. A few guys I know. One guy, he ended up getting his pro card, and the other one fell right short behind. He came in third. I think he had to place top 2 in the overall. But, yeah, I plan on trying to catch the Arnold Classic because I know it's a heavy lineup.
Yeah, so Sam Sulek got his card.
Yep.
Which, man, he looks good, man. Like, he's doing good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know it did a lot for his brand, too.
Oh, yeah. He's going to be – he's like Chris Bumstead now. He has that huge following, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was – yeah, okay. Anthony Williams won the Arnold Amateur.
Mm-hmm.
And then Sulek got his pro card, his first show. I mean, you know, for someone like him who I don't think he even had a coach.
Mm-hmm.
So he's doing good.
He was around like the Samson Dowden and all those guys, like training with them.
Was he? Okay.
He had I believe so. He had a good camp around him. I mean, but even in his own work, for him to gain his following that he had even before thinking about stepping on stage, he was in incredible shape before he even thought about it. So.
Yeah, and he's known for just eating whatever he wants, pretty much. He eats like fast food, cereal, all that stuff.
Yeah. I see him get that little half gallon of chocolate milk. I don't know how he does that, but
well, I was always a milk guy too, man. But
really,
I think it makes me hold fat, dairy in general.
Mm-hmm.
But that's kind of the way Callum was too. Like he ate whatever, and he genetically he was just a freak. So, yeah, EJ, you know, there's a couple things that I kind of missed last time that I wanted to go over with you and talk to you about. A couple games you played in I want to talk about your time playing for Joe. You mentioned so it was Michigan in 06.
Yeah.
When number 4 came into town. And I think that's still the record attendance. I don't know if they broke it this year with Ohio State. But at that time, for the longest time, that was the record. It's like 111,000.
Yeah, it was crazy.
And you were a freshman, and
Yeah.
you had that big opening kickoff. Again, almost took it back.
Mm-hmm.
And you wanted to talk about that a little bit.
Oh yeah, I mean it was from warm-ups until game time. It was just electric the whole time, really, like crowd and everything. So I remember coming out to warm-ups, and there was a little section of Wallace Warriors, and I was like, you know what? Let me go and get this crowd hype. I'm gonna walk out there. So we have like bleachers leading up to the stands. I walked up in there and started screaming. Everybody went crazy, and then that energy just led, like I said, to that opening kickoff, which I wanted to take back, but I think it started the game off right, but a few things happened. So
Yeah, man. I remember that game. First of all, the crowd, Chad Henne, Mike Hart were on that team. Jake Long, I think it was Gamble. He was one of the defensive guys at that time, if I remember.
Gamble
was it Gamble?
Ohio State. Chris Gamble was Ohio State.
Yeah, okay. Gamble was Ohio State. Who was the linebacker they had? What's that?
They had Mario Manningham, a receiver. They had what is that little short dude's name? I think he played for Cincinnati. It was was it Leon Hall?
Leon Hall, yep. I think they had Morgan Trent too. Was that his name?
Yeah, there you go. A track guy. He was fast.
I'm gonna look it up real quick because the next year is when they lost to App State at home.
Mm-hmm.
They had that to this day. That's like one of the biggest upsets of all time.
Yeah, they talk about it every year.
Yep, and they should. Penn State would never let that happen.
Nah.
Trying to find the roster here. Yeah, so it was Sean Crable.
Oh, okay, Crable.
It's who I'm talking about. I thought Gable. Yeah, but yeah, Gable, Ohio State guy. But Brandon Miner, they had him too.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan Mallett was on that team.
Oh, they had Brandon Graham too. I think he was a freshman.
Yep. Well, Brandon Graham, that was in Ohio. No, was he?
I was at the All-American game with him. Yep.
Wow. And he's still playing.
Yeah, I think he just retired at the Super Bowl.
Yeah, you're right. Brandon Graham was on that team. Yep. I for some reason I thought he was, but I know him and Daryl Clark are. I think him and Daryl Clark are friends.
Oh, okay.
Because I see them talking on Instagram and stuff. But yeah, that was a stacked team. And then they still lost to. You know who else was on that team? Steeler guy. I should remember his name right now. He played for the Steelers for quite a long time.
What position is he?
He's a linebacker. He was good too. I'm gonna find it.
All right. Yeah, I can't even put my finger on it.
It was Lamar Woodley.
Who?
Lamar Woodley. Remember him?
Lamar Woodley.
He was so he was number 56 for the Steelers, but that was the year in 2006 when Michigan was just unreal on defense, and then Ohio State beat them in the rivalry game, and then Ohio State went on to play Florida. But yeah, it just so happened too, AJ. I've been watching some old games and highlights, and you were teammates with Ted Ginn in that All-American game. And his dad was on the Jim Tressel podcast. He was talking about how when he took that opening kickoff back in the 2006 national championship when they played Florida, he got hurt when they were celebrating.
Yeah.
And his dad was saying how, because he was like Norwood, his dad was a coach, and, he's saying how it could have ended his career. He was really lucky that he didn't get hurt.
Oh wow.
But yeah, dude, like the fact that you played with him and Tim Tebow, but he, you were fast, obviously, but man, Ted Ginn was just, whew, he was something else.
That's a different type of speed, man. Like,
yeah,
I don't think people understand.
Sure.
You got track speed and football speed, but that his correlated everywhere he went. Because I believe he was like a hurdle guy when he ran track.
Well, you played with so many greats. Derek Williams, he was a track guy. You said Norwood was too.
Justin King.
Norwood. Justin King, yep.
Yeah, Norwood was the basketball guy. That's why he was so shifty.
Dude, he played. I think he played for Penn State, right? He played for Penn State when he was there. So, yeah, there was a lot of guys like that in that 05-06 class that came in. So I just wanted to talk about a couple games that you were involved in when you were at Penn State. From a fan's perspective, man, I want to get your take as a player. But first and foremost, you played for Joe Paterno. What was that like?
He was. I guess it was just that meeting, like the myth, the legend kind of thing. You know what I mean? You have your Joe Paternos, your Bobby Bowdens, your Nick Sabans, Les Miles, those kind of guys. And when you see them in person, you're like, man, it's just like an aura that they have. You know what I mean? So when they come in the room, you know they're there. And so, I mean, it had its ups and downs. But for the most part, he kind of had some things set in place to where he was getting you ready for after football. You know what I mean? As far as like meetings go, for meetings at 9, you got to be there at 8:45. You weren't there at 8:45, you're late. So, I mean, I still apply that to this day. So there's just certain things that stuck with you.
Yeah. Well, he was there when you recruited. You talked about Coach Johnson, Coach Norwood. I mean, what's it like? Just like everyday practice. I mean, I know he yelled a lot. I don't know if you saw Rich Ohrnberger, one of your teammates, was on the Julian Edelman podcast.
I didn't catch him.
And I'm going to play a clip here, but he's talking about Joe when he's yelling at him one time, which happened a lot with him, I'm sure. But yeah, he had that yell, man. He had that voice, that high screechy voice.
Yeah,
Joe. So did he ever? I'm sure he yelled at you a few times.
Yeah, it was more than I can count, but some of it had to do with what I was doing. But yeah, he definitely had his things, and overall, like I said, it was just a good experience. You know what I mean? Like I said, there's always ups and downs wherever you go, but just playing for a coach like that, and then just seeing what type of stuff that he tries to instill in his players.
Yeah. Coach Bugs, he's mainly your coach, right?
Scrap was my coach.
Scrap, right. Because Scrap was corners, I think. Bugs was what, safeties then?
Yeah, I think it was safeties, and I think he moved to safeties, but I think he may have been, was he running backs originally? I'm trying to remember.
Okay. Yeah, he moved around, but the staff that you had, they were pretty much the staff for years and years. I mean, some guys moved around, like Galen Hall came in as the OC, and then Ganter was there for a while, and then like Dick Anderson, Coach Kenny, I mean, all those guys, they were there for years and years. Coach Johnson, Vanderlyn, linebackers, O'Brien, he kept Vanderlyn and Johnson on his staff when he came in. But yeah, I just you always hear stories about him, about Joe. So all the players have always spoken very well of him. I'm going to play this clip.
All right.
I don't know if can you hear this?
Hey, Ohrnberger,
Yeah.
is that you?
Oh, he hated me. One time I got into a fight with the defensive tackle. I took his helmet off. I'm swinging at him. It's a practice, right? And he's pissed. He's like, hey, Ohrnberger, you got to get off the field. You're an animal. It's not even worth it with you. I'm going to send you on the next thing smoking back to Nassau Community College. I'm mad. So I'm giving him the finger from across the field, like double birds to Joe Paterno. As I'm leaving the field, my offensive line coach grabs my arm as I'm walking out of our indoor facility. He was like, you've just made a big mistake, Richard. Joe, later on, he's got his back pants on, his ankles exposed. I don't think anybody taught him how to wear pants. And he's walking through the locker room. He stops in my locker and he just looks at me. He goes, you New Yorkers, you're all the same. And I can't stand it. And he just kept walking. And he rarely cursed. So I was like, Jesus. Funny thing is, he's from New York. Yeah, he's from Brooklyn. I'm like, Joe.
That's crazy.
That's him, man. That's him for sure.
Bruce Ohrnberger was, he was one of the funniest guys on the team, man.
Well, I listened to that whole interview, and he talked about, his time at Penn State. He's always in the doghouse, and is what they called it for Joe. I don't know if you were ever in the doghouse, but
yeah.
Okay. Well, he was talking about, because he played for the Patriots, man. I mean, he was on a freaking dynasty that was the dynasty at the time, one of the best dynasties of all time in the NFL. But he said that it was after they won an AFC championship, and he said he's on the podium, and he said this old lady bumped into him. And he was like, oh, I'm sorry. And she's like, no problem. And he said, man, that lady has a voice on her. And then when they were doing the trophy, the person came up. It was Steven Tyler from Aerosmith.
Oh, wow.
He thought it was like this old lady, but it was Steven Tyler.
I know exactly what you're talking about now.
Yeah. But he was known on the Patriots too as a funny guy. Like Bill would have him come up and tell stories. So one time he's telling a story about when he crapped his pants and he had to he stole clothes out of a car in a parking garage. Because he was going to a meeting or something like that. I don't know, but
goodness
gracious.
Yeah, he was a funny guy.
Yeah, AQ's always on Pat McAfee. Him and Pat McAfee are good friends.
I see him on there.
And Pat McAfee, man, I remember this one episode because he played at Plum in Pittsburgh, and he played against Justin King. Now, obviously, you were from Maryland, so you didn't play him, but the one episode, man, he's talking about Justin King because he had like 6 touchdowns against Plum or something like that. And I think he mentioned you too. You guys, playing at Penn State and how good that couple classes were there. But AJ, I'm going to pick your brain a little bit about some games. So,
all right.
The 07 game against Michigan, you remember that?
That was what, at Michigan?
Yes. So I think we lost 12-9.
Okay.
Didn't have a touchdown. Obviously, had 3 field goals, but that was a big loss because we were. I think when I say we, obviously, I wasn't on the team. I just as like Penn State fan and everything. Do you remember that game at all? Ryan Mallett actually was the quarterback.
So did him and Robinson rotate that game? Because I'm trying to remember.
No, Mike was gone. That was Morelli. That was his second year.
No, I'm talking about Robinson as far as for Michigan, number 16.
Oh, so that was Chad Henne and Ryan Mallett. I think Denard was there. No, Denard was later, I think. He was like 20 because he was on the 2014 NCAA football cover. So Denard Robinson was later.
Dude, I could have sworn I played against him. Well, I got you.
I don't know.
Shoelace. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what he's
didn't
called.
tie his shoes. And then they had that other quarterback too. That number 5, I think his name was. I can't remember his name. He was like a big name for a while though, because I don't think he's really supposed to start, but he ended up playing anyway for Michigan. But yeah, that was Penn State went in there. It was a 12-9 game, tough loss. Didn't score a touchdown. And then, because that was right after they lost to App State,
Mm-hmm.
And then they got blown out by Oregon. I think they were like 1-3 at that time, or 1-2 when Penn State went in there. And Penn State was undefeated, I think, at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think you would have. You were probably on special teams at that time. But I always wondered for that game in particular how that went down. I mean, because that was such a tough loss. We were the better. Penn State was the better team.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you have any insight on that game in particular or not.
I'm trying to think. Because I know the first sophomore year I was kind of like nickel, and I was still in practice. They had it in the packages for like the offensive stuff, but I don't know how much we carried it out just because of how the games were going. But
it was
for some reason.
Okay. Yeah, it was. I'll turn off the sound here, but it was. Yeah, it was this game here. They went. You remember? It was. Yeah, Penn State was 10. Michigan was unranked. But we were on the road. I don't know if you remember that at all, but I remember they had a chance to score a touchdown. Morelli overthrew his guy. But now, as a fan, AJ, Morelli was he was tough to watch. I'm not expecting you to say anything bad about him. What was that like having him as the quarterback?
He was a leader, you know what I mean? And like I said, he could throw a rocket, but I mean, miscues happen, you know what I mean? Whether somebody misses a block and he just tries to get it off, or just trusting his arm that much because he had the arm for basically any throw. So sometimes those throws just got him in trouble sometimes.
Yeah. He was the number 1 quarterback in his class too.
Mm-hmm.
He was from the Pittsburgh area. Yeah, it was between him and Chad Henne actually that were supposed to come to Penn State.
Okay.
But I think Morelli, he like outperformed him in an All-Star game, Chad Henne. So they took Morelli. But all right, 08 against Ohio State. Do you remember that? At Ohio State.
Yeah.
That was a big game.
Yeah, I remember that game.
All right, so I think Lydell Sargent had the game-sealing interception.
Yeah.
The guy that you battled for years for the starting spot. You remember, like, you have any insight on that game in particular that you remember? That was a big win.
So that year, I'm trying to think who they. Yeah, because that was. I think that was the year he had that big pass breakup against Ted. Justin did, right?
Yes.
I think he went like for like a deep post and like he broke it up. Now that game was fun. You know what I mean? That's actually a game I played offense in.
Yep.
But yeah, that game was fun. It was electric. Obviously, being recruited by Ohio State, I knew a lot of the guys on Ohio State and the coaches and stuff. So it was maybe a little more emotional game for me. But yeah, it was definitely a big game. It was fun.
Well, that play right there, that's when Mark Rubin knocked that ball out. And then Navarro Bowman, another guy you played with, got the recovery. That was a huge play. I mean, that was edge of your seat game, the whole game.
Mm-hmm.
But Terrell Pryor was the quarterback of that team because he was supposed to come to Penn State.
Yeah, I remember. I know exactly what you're talking about now because I remember. I can't remember who the person was, but while I was getting recruited, that's when I just recently changed my number to 1. And it was like, oh, Terrell Pryor about to come take that. I was like, nah, he ain't. He can find something else. So that was funny. But yeah, I remember that game.
Yeah, Daryl Clark got, when I say knocked out, not that he was like physically knocked out, but he was taken out of the game because he got hit in the head. And I just remember what was ironic about that game, if that's the word, was Terrell Pryor was recruited to Penn State, the Jeanette, Pennsylvania guy. Said he didn't want to come to Penn State because he pretty much said it was like farm country. He didn't want to come there.
Oh, yeah, there you go right there.
And then, and then at the end of the game, he's picked off by Lydell Sargent. It was just so satisfying as a fan because he didn't come to Penn State. And he was one of the highest recruited players probably of all time.
Yeah, he's crazy.
Yeah, and you say he almost took your number. Okay. But yeah, he was number 2 at Ohio State because I think Malcolm Jenkins, right? He was number 1, I think. Malcolm Jenkins?
Jenkins was number 2, but I think he was gone.
Number 2?
Yeah, that was actually my host when I went to look at him. When I went to visit, Malcolm Jenkins was my host.
Was he really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He had a long career in the NFL too.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And he was a highly drafted guy as well, I think. I think it was 2008 or I think it was 2009 when he got drafted. And Aaron Maben, he went I think number 9 that year.
Yeah.
And then Audric, he went later on, but yeah, that was a huge win. And then the 2 games that I really wanted to dive into was the next one. I think it was the next week, Iowa. Lost on the road. Yeah. Yeah. So, man, that sucked. I cried after that game like a baby.
Yeah.
So was Daryl Clark 100%? You remember?
I feel like everybody was pretty good going to the game. You know, you have your bumps and bruises. I think, what was that, like a 6 or 7 game maybe of the season. So, I mean, everybody had their little bumps and bruises they was dealing with. But I think the mind state was good. And then, like, they warned us about the pink locker rooms. I was just like, that ain't going to faze me. You know what I mean? But it was just, I don't know. It was like a slow, lethargic game, I felt like. It was just, and then they had that running back, Sean Green. Well, he was a bruiser too. You know, he put his shoulder down. And I'm like, goodness gracious. It's 4 quarters of this. So, I mean, it was one of them games that came down, obviously, to the wire, the field goal, which was, I think that was like our national championship year. We should have won.
Yeah, see, that's the thing, man. 08 particularly, and Justin King, I actually forgot this. He left right before the 08 season. Went to the NFL. So you had quite a bit of time playing in all facets. That game, man, the conspiracy was that Daryl Clark was knocked out of the Ohio State game. So he shouldn't have played in the Iowa game because he still wasn't fully recovered from the concussion that he had or whatever it was that Pat Devlin should have played. But it sounds like that wasn't the case.
I mean, I feel like I know when I had a concussion, I had to go through these protocols. You had to go back to the original doctor you went to see how you tested last time to see where you was at. And so, I mean, I'm sure they took the steps to do that. And then him being the competitor that he is, he's not going to sit out the game, you know? No. So it was like, yeah, you can play, or maybe you should wait another week. He's going to play. You know what I'm saying? If he's clear, he's playing.
Yeah, man. And what was so devastating about that was that team was so stacked on both sides of the ball. I mean, you had like guys like Mark Rubin, Scorado, who were seniors. You were in there. Lydell was in there. Tony Davis, and then they had freaking. It wasn't Dan Connor, but it was like Sean Lee and Navarro Bowman and Tyrell Sells on the defense, and Maben and Audric and Maurice Evans. And then they had all those offensive weapons. So I think that, and then I was going to ask you about the USC game too, but I think if Penn State would have beat Iowa, they would have gone to the national title for sure.
Yeah.
And it was Florida and Oklahoma at that time. It was like Tim Tebow and the quarterback from Oklahoma, the Heisman winner, Sam Bradford. Do you think that team, 2008, could have beaten like Florida or Oklahoma?
I think with the right game plan, when we put the pieces to the puzzle, I mean, we pretty much handle our business and hold our own, even when it comes to bowl games. So my first freshman year, it was nice and sunny, so there was no excuses. We beat a Tennessee team, and then sophomore year, well, we all know how that went. Well, was that junior year? No, we went to the Rose Bowl 2009.
Yep.
So I think we went to Texas A&M, San Antonio.
Yep.
Played them. We won that game. It was inside. So, like I said, no weather excuses. I mean, the only one that was weather was LSU, but we both have to play in it. So at that point, I think we hold our own against any team in the nation, honestly.
Yeah, you were 3-1 in bowl games when you were there. Yep, Tennessee, Arian Foster was on that team. A&M, you guys won that, and then the Rose Bowl, and then I think it was Capital One. What was it? Capital One,
LSU,
yeah. The Mud Bowl.
Yeah.
But yeah, I ask you that because I think if Penn State would have ended up playing Oklahoma or Florida, definitely could have won against one of those two teams. But then you played USC, who I think, even though they weren't in the national title, and unfortunately Penn State had to play them, I think they were like the most high-powered team in the nation that year. They just lost to Oregon State earlier in the year. And then I think it was like a week later, you guys beat the crap out of them at home. What was it about that game? Because I've watched that game a million times. What was it about that game, man, that made Penn State lose? And it really did. I came down to the passing game because Sanchez was just throwing the ball left and right. Did you guys adjust in that game?
Yeah, I mean, we made adjustments. It was just, they made adjustments too. And I think that college era of Mark Sanchez was like the top of his career, like where he was just in his prime. Like, felt like he could do no wrong kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like, even if he threw a duck or something or just threw it up, somebody was catching it. Like, man, what in the world? So everything that could go right for them, I think, went right that game. Everything. And then just like their stature. Like, I don't get intimidated by how people look, but just looking at them, you like, all right, it's going to be a fight. You know what I mean? Like, those dudes, they was just built different, like all around. From the linemen to the DBs.
Well, I remember Damian Williams, receiver for them.
Yeah.
Man, I got so mad that after that first touchdown he was waving at the crowd. I got so mad after that because I was like, all right, I hope this isn't how – because, man, he threw it right over Scorado's hand, that first touchdown they had. Scorado, like, dove out, just missed the ball. And he was good safety,
Yeah.
But they were just fast. I mean, they had Damian Williams, Patrick Turner,
Stephon Johnson, Joe McKnight.
Yeah.
They had, oh man, Taylor Mays. Like it was just animals out there.
Taylor Mays, that was the guy that he should have declared after that year, but he didn't. He came back. Probably could have been like a top 10 pick, but he knocked Norwood out of that game.
Yeah, he probably would have been ejected in today's game, but yeah.
Well, he knocked his own player out too.
Yeah, like I said, he had to be all of 230 back then.
Yeah,
running and he was flying.
And he was
He
massive.
like a 4.3 or 4.4. Like that's crazy.
Yep. And I don't know what you think. We talked about the lifting program at Penn State.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think there was because I don't think USC did what you guys did, like a lot of the machine lifting and stuff like that. You think that made a difference between the two conferences in particular? Like you're playing a Pac-10 team at the time.
Mm-hmm.
You think that made a difference in terms of like the lifting programs, the preparation, what you guys ran into there?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean,
all right, yeah, that's what I thought.
Knowing about like my body I do now, it definitely you training for strength. All right, cool. You know what I mean? You can be strong and durable, but they're training to be explosive. You know what I mean? So they're doing those Olympic style lifts, those power cleans, those squats, squat jumps, box jumps, stuff that we didn't do. So at that point, they're going to have a level up over time just because of the stuff that they're doing. Their body's just going to be clicking much faster, like those fast twitch muscles. You know what I mean? So it definitely played a role.
Well, I think the main concept behind the lifting program at Penn State was endurance. Because we've talked about this before on my podcast. Like, we knew what the lifting program was at Penn State. And then when you played a team like USC, who was the Pac-10 was always fast.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure they were doing like free weights and stuff, like you said. So I felt like that on the field, you could see the difference, between that. I mean, as good as that 08 team was.
Yeah. I could just see it like in the build of their bodies. You know what I mean? So, and unless they just had like a impeccable meal plan, like I don't know. But as far as that goes, like it was like across the board, the team was just all in shape. I tell you that. I was like, goodness gracious.
Yeah, and you mentioned about Mark Sanchez, how you say he was big, like he's built, huh? Because he was 6'2", 230 at that time, 232.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I never even thought about, kind of what he would look like in person. But yeah, I think that year, USC, you mentioned the names. They had like three backs that I'm pretty sure they had three backs that were all over like 1,000 yards.
Yeah. And
I mean,
like I said, the open field was their playground, man. Like you give them a hole and they just like think. I think Stephon Johnson, I think he ended up going to the Bills. He was more like their grit guy at the moment. He would get those tough yards. He could break a sweep, but they used Joe McKnight to go ahead and give us a spark, like go a quick screen too, bubble screen, like, and then his cuts were just, it was Reggie Bush-esque, I'll tell you that much. Like, wasn't Reggie Bush, but it was like, man, he's pretty darn close to him. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah. Yeah, that was their only loss was, again, Oregon State. They lost in I don't know if it was overtime or not, but they lost. It was like a tip pass or something like that. But I just always wondered what happened because that team was Penn State that year was so good.
Mm-hmm.
And then even into 2009, man, I don't mean to keep talking about the losses here, but
that was good.
Iowa at home in 2009, rainy. Again, you guys lost a close one. And you were the starter. You were a starter at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you remember that game?
I kind of like blur those losses out, man.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I don't blame you.
I guess like as a DB, like I said, next play you just gotta forget about it, move on to the next one. But
Yeah.
Iowa, I just remember those because the first time it happened, you know what I mean, it was a big punch to the gut. Then the second time, it was like, man, here we go again. Like we got to get our minds right, get ready for next week because I feel like there was no reason for us to lose. Not to take away nothing from Iowa, they came ready to play. So, but just knowing the capabilities that we had and what we had in our team shouldn't happen.
Yeah, because a lot of guys came back.
Mm-hmm.
I think Suke, he was the next safety.
Mm-hmm.
But you guys are number 5, came in and won. But yeah, again, a stacked team, and then you guys end up at the end of the year playing LSU and you win. Great way to go out for all you guys.
Yeah.
That was like Bowman, Jerome Hayes, I think was still on the team at that time. You, Daryl Clark, Derek Moy, all those guys, Evan Royster. So to go out with a win like that, especially, you know, Daryl Clark, I remember he's pretty emotional after that. You know, that was a good LSU team. That was a coming off of like a national title like 2 years before that.
Right.
And, you know, they were pretty good. I think Patrick Peterson was on that team.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Trending
you know,
Holiday
for you guys,
was on that team. Justin Jefferson's brother was a quarterback. Tolliver, the receiver. Yeah, they had some people on there.
it was their coach Les Miles. He was the coach at the time too. But you know, in your time at Penn State, AJ, you guys, you know, like you mentioned, you beat Arian Foster in Tennessee. You beat A&M, Justin Jefferson's brother in LSU. You guys had a lot of big wins, and you beat some good players. I mean, historically, Penn State's beaten some good teams. You know, they beat like Tim Couch in '99 in the one bowl game they played against Kentucky. Beat Ricky Williams when he played at Texas. I think Wally Richardson was the quarterback at that time. But so you don't keep up with the team right now, AJ?
I don't follow too much just with my schedule, kind of.
Yeah.
And like I said, being where I'm at, it's just Gamecocks here, Clemson here, you know what I mean? So you get all the down south teams, so
yeah,
that pretty much consumes all the channels, really.
Yeah. Well, I'd definitely like to have you on during the season just to get your perspective. I guess if you need any updates, just ask me because we talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got a good team coming back, man. We're in prime position right now to win it all, I think. So, you know, you talk about most recent history, like 08 was a shot to win it all. 2017, Saquon and M was a shot. And then now again. So, is there anything else you want to cover, AJ?
No, that was, I mean, I'm good if you're good, but I'm just trying to think. I don't even know who they have like coming back. Like I said, I think the Peacock app has a Big Ten network, but it's like hit or miss. Sometimes you get like an Indiana game, and you're like, I'm not watching that.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna try to keep up with it. But, I mean, now I'm just kicking strong with this prep, man. Trying to stay focused.
Yeah. So you have a show. So when is your first show? You're doing you haven't done a show yet, right?
Right, I haven't done one, so I think I'm gonna do it either the middle or end of May. I just gotta double check the dates and check with my coach just to see where we're at. But we're making good progress. He's liking what he's seeing.
Good. Well, speaking of the Arnold Classic, man, you know, that could be you soon.
Yeah.
Standing on that stage. I could definitely see you doing that. And again, I'm happy you're doing that, man. Because you got a good build. You got a good future with that. Have you heard? I think I asked you this. Dave Palumbo. Have you heard of him?
I heard the name. I can't even put a face to it.
So yeah, he's RX Muscle. They're actually there right now covering the whole thing.
Okay.
But I was gonna put you guys in touch. He's really good with communication, so I was gonna put you guys in touch. If you ever need anything or have any questions, he'll answer them. And you know, he coaches and everything too. So I know you have a coach.
Okay. Yeah.
But he would be a good guy to work with too. Chris Aceto, you know him? You know that name?
Like, as much as I like dig into like the bodybuilding stuff, I vary a lot. I mean, as much I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you know, he's kind of like he's well known in the bodybuilding community, but he's not like a huge name. But he was Jay Cutler's coach.
Oh, okay.
You know, he has a lot of Olympia titles under his belt. He's like Hani Rambod, kind of.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, like they call him the technician, Chris the technician Aceto. But he was Jay Cutler's guy, but he's another very knowledgeable person. Him and Dave are like best friends. So
nice.
There's some guys that I want to get you in contact with because they're just good contacts to have in the industry, and good guys that you could. Dave does email. All right. I'll email Dave right now. And 5 minutes later, he answers me.
That's what's up.
Because he's just that good with communication. Even though he's like got a million things going on, he's like constantly answering his email. So I'm gonna put you guys in touch. But
okay, yeah, do that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, we'll talk more about that. But AJ, again, thanks for coming on, man. There's nothing else you want to talk about. It's always good to have guys like you on here, man. Former players. You know, you guys, again, you mean a lot to the fans, what you guys did and what you guys are doing now. So, but until next time, AJ, I want to have you on again. So,
all right.
You take care, man. All right.
All right. You do the same, buddy.
All right, buddy. Thanks.
All right. Yep.